Hey YouTube, I'm going to explain to you guys all about how to build the gear diff for the Cougar Laydown. I've been asked various questions. I get asked questions about, oh, why is it leaking, or how much oil do I need to put in, all these different things quite a lot of the time, and I should just do a video for you. I need to build a diff up. I'll show you how to do it. I've got the step bags from the kit, and I'm gonna just go through a couple of the details, maybe talk a little bit too much, but you'll get my drift anyway. So first of all, you'll need I'll use a car stand. You'll put the diff halves in here to hold it, keep it nice out of the way. You'll need some kitchen roll. If you're young, ask your mum nicely or your dad, can I use some of the kitchen roll to build my shocks? You're gonna wanna put it on there. When you're building it, you're gonna need your shock oil. In this case, my flavor is 10K or 10,000 CST. That is Center Stokes, and that is the thickness of oil that we're going to run. You also need a 1.5mm driver, set of tweezers. I'll be using some black grease. I use varying things on the O-ring when I put it all together, but that's that. And then you need your parts for the diff. So I have them, and we're going to go through it step by step. So we have step 26. Inside we have the gear body, and we have some shims. We have a little pin. I have a screw for pre-tapping. You're welcome to do this. This gets the hole nice ready for when you put the other driver in, but I'm not going to bother with that. Or maybe I should. I'm going to grab a driver. We can do that quickly. So we're going to tap these out, and then we've got like the little bevel gear, and let's go. So I'm just going to use the power driver. This is one of the ones we do, your Rotorcraft one. It's pretty good under our core range. Just come in here, make sure it's straight, wind it in, and then unwind it. And we're going to do this 4 times now, okay? Screw will be getting quite hot, so don't burn yourself on it. I'm sure you'll be alright even if you did a little bit. So I'm going in almost most of the way of the screw, but leaving a little bit left. It'll be fine. So that's them kind of roll formed, I guess we could call it in engineering terms. So I did lie to you. We need a 2mm driver for that screw. I've got all about it. Got the O-ring hidden inside the output from where it's been inside the bag, so we're all good. So there's your main gear, and what we do is like a little bit of grease. I get my 1.5mm driver, and I'm just going to touch that inside the bore of here. I wiggle it round, just make sure you got a bit of the grease in different places, and what that'll do, it will just protect everything. You will be getting shock oil going into these areas wherever it can get. It's a little bit of a crafty one, but it gets there. So I've got some inside here, so I'm happy with that now. I'll then pop my O-ring in. So that squeezes in there nicely. That's sitting there ready for you. Just to inspect the inside, make sure there's nothing wrong with the moulding. There shouldn't be, but it's always worth checking your things before you build them. The biggest trouble that you have is you put things together, then wonder why it's not working, and sometimes it could be down to just making sure there's nothing defect in whatever you're doing. Whatever car you have, whatever brand you have, just check it. It's always good for you. Stops frustration later on. So when I build this, we've got 2 of each type of shim. I'm only going to run 1 shim everywhere. So we have our shim that will fit onto the output. Again, I'll just touch the output with a bit of the black moly grease. I've got the MR33 stuff here. You can use that O-ring grease and various things. I've never really stuck to a certain one. I've just generally gone with black or whatever. As long as nothing goes wrong during when we're running, that's fine. But if you find something that works and you like the car how it felt, just always build your car the same. That's the biggest thing. So now I pop this inside, but just before I pop it inside, put a tiny little bit more black grease on there, just to protect the inner edges of the O-ring, and it will kind of seal it away against the silicone oil, because the silicone oil will allow the O-ring to expand the silicone grease. can go into the O-ring. Because they're both silicone, it just absorbs it. It's like a little sponge. So that's now through there. And then your last shim, we've got our big shim, which drops in here. And I will just drop that in using the tweezers and just make it find home. The next bit, again, it's all about a bit of black grease. I drop it on top of the shim. And what this will do, it will act as lubricant for if that shim stays still. And everything else is spinning, it just gives it all a fighting chance. When you're rebuilding these, the one thing to watch out for is that shim can become a little bit like a little conical disc, and it creates like an extra spring, and you'll find that your diff will feel stiff, and it's like your oil's gone bad or something. But your oil's not going to go stiff as it gets old. Normally that's gone a bit bowed, so swap it out with some fresh ones and it will feel really, really good. One thing to do before you do any more after this, I've dropped my gear on. That's all sitting there nicely. Just make sure it's free. There's no harm in that. So then when you put it together, you know that's not the problem. So the next step will be 27 from the kit manual. I've got these shims here. Keep them. You're going to use them later on. It's worth replacing them. Makes everything nice. So if I just drop these out here, we should have all the parts sitting here ready to go. We've got various things that are the same. The only main difference is the cover. And also one thing to talk about with the cover, when you've had your car for some time, you can find that it can leak out from the cover. And all that is that you've unscrewed it and screwed it so many times that you've actually started dishing the cover. So replace it. It's plastic, it's not very expensive. Just swap it out with a new one. But that'll be after some running. I found it's guys that have had the same diff in all year. It's like, well, let's just swap this out, guys, make it nice. And when they've done that, yeah, feels perfect. So again, I put a little bit of grease on my output and I can drop my shim on. I'm doing it in a different order now. Doesn't really matter too much. I'm just following what's in the manual. Pop that on there. Then we get our O-ring, not yet. A little bit of grease on our 1.5. I was wrong, and I wiggle that round. Make sure there is grease in there. There's nothing wrong with a little bit too much grease. You can always wipe it off afterwards. I then pop in my O-ring. That's sitting there quite happily. I touch my output down onto here, into my grease. I pop it back in here, slide it in, give it a wiggle around. That's nice and free. Really happy with that. And then I dropped my large shim on. That's sitting there now. It's quite happily in there. I've got my tweezers again to grab my pin, poke that through the little hole, and that's now sitting there. Make sure it's free. And like I said before, we're going to put a little bit of grease on this mating surface. Also, the benefit of adding some grease here is when you put your gear on top, when you hold it upside down to put it on top of the diff, it's not going to fall out. It's stuck in. That's a little tip for you. If you're building it fresh, don't leave it dry. Have a bit of stuff to stick it together. So we now have our two halves. We can drop that in the car stand. So that's great. Just going to make sure it's in the view. So that's awesome. We have a great view of that. Again, I've got my shims here. I'm going to put them aside and put them in my little spares box. And that'll be that. It'd be great. Got my heater in the background making some funny noises. I'm sure it's fine. Right, we've got our last bits. We've got the cross pin, we have the O-ring, the little screws, M2.5s, which require a nice tip. A tip of the day is to have a good tip. I get many people that end up stripping screws because the tip's worn out. They're complaining that they've stripped their screw, when really they're not keeping an eye on their tips. Always look after your tips, chaps and chapesses. This is an MIP 1.5 driver. I've had a very long time and it's stayed very, very good. So now I'm going to pop all my gears onto my cross pin. What I would do is I put a little bit of grease on my cross pin, like a bit of grease. There's nothing wrong with adding a bit of grease. Lubrication is key with all these things for them to work properly. I'll then just touch each little bit on. I'll put on a shim and I'll do the opposite end. That will come around here. That will pop on there. Hopefully this is all in camera. I apologise if any of it goes out, but we'll work with that, won't we? You get the drift. This video is aiming at some of the races that have been doing it for a while and just wonder how we do it at the track. Oh, I've dropped it in there. Bit of a wally on that one. Let's drop that down there. Got a lot of grease in that bit, but it'll be alright. So we drop that shim on there. I've got to drop a shim on the other one. So that's 3 of them done now. We'll just do the 4th one. It's all a little bit messy when you've got lots of things to hold in one hand. But we've got lots of digits on our hands to do things. But now we have all our cross pins on. You've got the option of running the steel ones or the alley ones, but to be honest, the plastic ones, they're great. They do a super job. But you might feel a difference if you run the steel ones. They'll be slightly freer, I think, under frictional loads when you're trying to spin them. But actually, what I was going to talk to you about was 4 and 2 gear diffs. There's lots of theories out there. I've got my theories, and my theory is that you can run your 4 gears, and on and off power you have a very consistent car. If we take off 2 gears now, very simply put, that's 2 gear diff. When we're running 2, you have a lot of load going on to those pin areas, and what you do get is a bit of bind, and your teeth and your pins are all kind of lock up under power. And what you'll find is you'll get nice forward drive, and off power it'd be super free. It'd be like running half the frictional value of what these are doing. So when the viscous oils go through the teeth and slow everything down, obviously with 2 it's less frictional than when you have 4, but on power things bind up, whereas on 4 gear it makes it more consistent. If you're at a track that off power you've got too much steering on 4-wheel drive and stuff like that, just leave 4 gear with like a 10k or 12k. Whereas when we go 2 gear, we still run thinner oils because of the locking effect that we get, but off power we get more and more steering, so it's pretty awesome. A lot of teams go into it, you'll see it more and more on setup sheets. I've seen it across all the different teams that they do that. The next important thing is we pop the O-ring on. If you don't put this O-ring on, you might get into trouble, or you will get into trouble. Nothing to do with your parents telling you off or getting your boss giving you another 10 and off. What will happen is oil will go everywhere in your car, and you'll make everyone happy if it goes on the track, all over your car, and the sand and dust and carpet fluff and dirt will stick to it. So basically, put your O-ring on. I get a couple of people that haven't put it on and they're asking me why their diff's leaking. Well, that's fine. They're welcome to ask me that question, but it's worth putting your O-ring on first. Saves me a few questions. So I've popped some grease in. Some grease, we'll call it silicone oil. We're not going to call it grease. I've been using that word a lot. And basically I dropped the oil in. You can talk about how much do I put in and stuff like that. I never measure them. We get by I use my eyes. But if you don't trust your eyes, you can weigh them. But once you have done a diff, you have to rebuild it super fresh. So then you have it with no oil in, so then you match what you did last time. But put the oil in, it will drop down, it will filter through, it will work its way through the gears. You can pick it up, move it around, make sure you've got it in all the crevices. This diff's got a good capacity to it, but on the L1 diff it's actually larger, so we'll actually take a bit more oil than this one. So I just kind of drop some in, I pick it up, and I just let the oil kind of seep around. You could put the oil in first, but you might put too much in. One important thing is making sure your teeth are meshed when you put it back together. I get the tweezers and I poke it in the tooth and give it a little wobble and make sure it's engaged, because you've got to remember you've got to mesh 4 times when you do it with 2 gears, and you're going to mesh 8 times with 4. So what you'll find is sometimes you screw it together and people are like, oh, it's locked, it's not moving. Well, it's because you've done this. So just make sure it's good, make sure it's really nice, and just have a little wobble around. Yeah, that's feeling good. I feel like I've got enough oil in there now. If we look at it, I've got it, it's got a nice little little dish going on, so it's above the center of those pins. It's just covering most of the teeth up to here, so we've come up to this edge here. It's good. I have got a little gap behind the teeth, but I think it'll be all right. Once we've got the other gear in there, it will displace and then it will cover the rest of it. So I'm very happy with that. There's no air bubbles coming up anymore. So all I'll do is I'll pop the other side on. So we'll come in, just make sure it's all looking good. I'll come in and I'll just drop that down there. And I give it a little wiggle. Give the output a wiggle so you know you've got hold of the teeth. What you can do if you want to be cheeky is grab the other output and just turn it around until you feel like you've got good mesh. And yeah, that's meshed up nicely now. It wasn't perfect initially. And then time up the holes. Give a little push together. And that's that. So I just need to put all my screws in now. And we've almost got a complete gear diff. With 2 gears, 10,000k oil. Not 10,000k, that'd be a much higher number. So 10k oil, or 10,000 CST. Let's do that. do it up to touch, don't do it up full tight, so we do that. It's like if you know anything about engines or anything like that, kind of do up all your screws gently to a certain point and then work your way around and tighten it just to give it equal pressure all around. Otherwise you're going to give it a bit of relief one side, and next thing you know the oil's leaking out. So let's screw that together. Again, good tips always help, otherwise you end up rounding this off and then you're going to be in trouble. You end up chopping a screw head off and scrapping a diff casing or something like that. Last screw coming in here. As we come around, let's come in there. Almost to home. We have our fourth screw. Almost there. And on this one, I'm going to do it up. But before I do it up, I'm just going to check again. Everything's alright. Mesh is okay. You might find when you first put it together, there's like a couple of little lumps or whatever. But just double check you're alright. Don't definitely do it up. Maybe take it apart, check it over. You can always build it dry if you want to check your assembly. But I feel pretty confident with this one, so I'm just going to tighten up my screws. There's that one. I'm going to go opposite that one. And then 90 degrees over. Then opposite that one. And then on each one now, I'm just going to give a last little nip. Don't strip it. That's not going to get you anywhere. Certainly not going to get you around the track quickly if your oil's leaking out. And now that's that. I've got my nice built gear diff. If you want to, you can write with like a silver permanent pen, 10K and 2 gear or whatever. Or you can scribe it in, or you can get a sticker sheet with them on. I know RDT, Richard Thorpe, his company, do a little sticker sheet, so you can put like 10K stuck on your car so you know what's in there. But that's that. Just beware if anything's leaking. Make sure you have done the screws up tight enough. Make sure if you've been running your gear diff for ages, to replace that cover from time to time. And the other thing is rebuild your diffs more than you think. At the big meetings, we rebuild them every 4 to 5 runs, because it just keeps consistency going. The gears punish the oil, and the oil gets really deteriorated over time. And yeah, just go fresh and you'll be surprised just how nice the car can feel. You have more control. Just for setup bits of advice, if you find you're coming onto the straight with 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive and you're lighting a wheel up, go thicker on the oil. It's pretty simple. But if you've got cars locked in, you're not lighting wheels up but you want more rotation, drop your oil down. I recommend on 2-wheel drive you go down to 7K on the diff oil if you want more steering. Even go down to 5. If you want to run 4 gear, then you need to be running something more like 3,000 or 5,000, but have a play with whatever you want. Whereas outdoors, I generally stick it around 10, sometimes go up to 12. Whereas 4-wheel drive, we rarely go to 15, but we live around the 10 and 12 mark, and are an equal front and rear. I never really play around with having a thicker front. It just adds another factor that could be affecting things. If you want more rotation, go lower. If you want more drive, go thicker. And that's all you need to be doing. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope I was clear. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.